Hello again, everyone. Welcome to Washington Gun Law TV. I am Washington Gun Law President William Kirk. Thanks for joining us. Hey, it's a time of the year where I get to do a bunch of podcasts around the country because there's a lot of state legislatures that are hard at work trying to pass civilian disarmament bills. And one of the most common questions I get is, who has the worst gun bill in America right now? And it varies from day to day because a lot of things can happen. What we're going to do today is we're going to kind of take a national perspective on what's going on around the country. We're going to take a look at a bunch of bills that we have already talked about, but there's been developments on many of them. And so what we're going to do is we're going to try to finally determine this. So, where's the worst gun bill in America now?
First individual on call, and for whatever reason, if that goes through, we have actually 3 layers. So we have another and another. So if it continues to ring, it goes from one phone to the next to the next. So we're betting on our chances. The highly compensated team that we have is going to take that phone call. Mm-hmm. And then from there, they have that privilege, right? They have the attorney-client privilege and that right to share with them, our attorneys, of what just took place. We have a nationwide team of attorneys that's going to be able to reach out to our Arizona attorney to get them on the horn immediately. You know, we've had cases all over the country now.
You're not truly prepared unless you have right to bear back you. You will always get an attorney-answered hotline, so you will always have a confidential phone call. There are no cap limits for either civil or criminal defense. This covers all forms of self-defense. So from a fist to a firearm, from a fat lip to a dead body, you are covered, and you will have some of the nation's most passionate 2A attorneys in your corner fighting for you. And right now, if you visit my friends at protectwithbear.com and you use the promo code WGL, you will receive 10% off. Listen, you need to protect yourself so that you can protect them. Visit my good friends at protectwithbear.com. Okay, America, so here's what we're talking about today. Is that, as you know, we here at Washington Gun Law, we will gladly go do a video that is about a specific state, because we find oftentimes that our rights are not really being taken from us from the top down. They are instead being taken from us from the bottom up. And if you take a look at most of the pain and misery that those that are suffering in these civilian disarmament states, the problems did not come from the federal government. No, it came from their local state governments, okay? And so we kind of handicap who's got the worst gun bill right now. Now, prior to this, let us make no doubt that it was the opinion of Washington Gun Law that New Mexico Senate Bill 279 was absolutely the worst gun bill, because in just 20 pages of legislation, and 20 pages is like a cocktail napkin when we're talking about legislation, okay? They were going to impose an assault weapon ban, a magazine ban, and an unlawful gun registry in 20 pages. It was an amazing, epic piece of legislation, epically bad, but that they could accomplish all of that and wanted to do it in one fell swoop. Well, we find out today that the New Mexico state legislature has adjourned for the year. And this bill never made it to a floor vote on the chamber of origination, and therefore never even had an opportunity to go to the other chamber. Now, I know that the governor, who is always having a fit out there, is talking about a special session. I will remind the governor that she called a special session last year also to pass some more of her gun bills that had not gone anywhere. And of course, the special session turned out to be a big, gigantic nothing burger and a waste of New Mexico taxpayer money. So right now, 279 from New Mexico kind of comes off the board. Then there was another close second one, kind of right there on the silver medal stand at the current time, and that was California Assembly Bill 1333. Now, this wasn't a firearm bill. This was a bill about self-defense law, but basically would have imposed a duty to retreat, an absolute duty to retreat on California residents. We talked about it on this video here, and it was a bill that was literally going to make the lives of Californians far more dangerous. It was going to make it practically impossible to defend yourself and loved ones in certain situations. It was a horrible piece of legislation. But earlier this week, when we were down in Sacramento, just by chance, that bill was withdrawn by the sponsors. So right now, 1333 out of California, that comes off the board also. So of course, that begs the question, well, who's in pole position now? Well, the nominees are Oregon House Bill 3075, Now, this is a piece of legislation that would impose not only a magazine ban, but also a permit to purchase with mandatory training, live fire training, and all of that. Now, it would be sitting in the number one spot, except for the fact that this same legislation was passed through a ballot measure a couple years ago called Ballot Measure 114. It had been enjoined ever since its enactment date, but the Oregon Court of Appeals just found that the law is totally fine under the Oregon State Constitution and has lifted the injunction. So much of what 3705 would have done has now already been implemented through Ballot Measure 114. So I don't even know if residents of the state of Oregon would actually be affected by this bill, considering the fact that the ballot measure has now gone into effect. Then there's Colorado Senate Bill 3. Now, this has just been an exhausting experience to follow what's going on in Colorado. And for some reason, when a bill starts in Colorado in one form, there is a high probability that it is going to completely evolve into something else. And such is the case with Colorado Senate Bill 3, because it started off as an assault weapon ban, but then kind of morphed into, well, it's not really an assault weapon ban, because if you go out and you get this permit to purchase kind of an Illinois-like FOID card and do all this mandatory training, well, then we'll let you continue to buy these firearms. And it is an absolute mess, but it arguably will ban platforms of firearms for certain people, and it will most assuredly will require some type of a pre-purchasing licensing and a need to prove your worthiness before you can purchase these items, which are otherwise constitutionally protected. Then there's Washington House Bill 1163. Now, this is a permit to purchase, okay? So the magazines were already banned a few years ago. The assault weapons were already banned a couple of years ago. And so now our state moves on to, can we just ban or put limitations on the access to Second Amendment rights? And that is what is House Bill 1163, a permit to purchase, mandatory training, mandatory live fire training. In Washington State, you do not have to take any education currently to get your concealed pistol license. This bill would require mandatory training and live fire training before you can get a concealed pistol license in Washington State as well. Then there's Minnesota SF 1596. Now, this is an assault weapon ban in Minnesota. Now, they've made a couple of runs at this before, but I remind everyone that Washington State's got passed on the 7th go-around, so they will keep coming. Okay, now, this is sitting in the Senate Judiciary and Public Safety Committee. It hasn't moved since getting there, but that doesn't mean anything, and the state of Minnesota has plenty of time still to get this legislation on the move, so that is also one of the nominees, but the one that we right now believe is absolutely the worst piece of gun control legislation kicking around in any state right now, well, that's Maryland House Bill 1287, a ban on any handgun which can have a auto sear attached to it, which, if you know something about firearms, you will know that any semi-automatic striker-fired firearm is susceptible to exactly that. Yes, there may be some manufacturers where it is a little easier to do than others, but every one of those firearms is in fact capable of being converted in that fashion, illegal as it may be. And what this bill does is say, well, you know what? Well, you're not going to be able to purchase or sell any of those types of firearms anywhere in the state of Maryland at all if they can be converted through an unlawful auto sear or switch. Translation, they are literally going to ban large, and I mean massively large portions of semi-automatic handguns from commercial sale. So right now, moving into pole position is Maryland House Bill 1287, which, by the way, Maryland, if it's enacted into law, the effective date is October 1st of this year. So, you know, you might think that's a long way off, but it will get here real fast. So at the current time, there are many pieces of terrible civilian disarmament legislation kicking around the country. We will keep our eyes on all of them closely. Now, listen, if you are in any one of those states and you want to try to stop the insanity, well, you better get in contact with your local representatives, your state representatives, your state senators, and let them know that, hey, you do not support this legislation. Okay, listen, if you guys got any questions about any of this or anything else related to what's left of our Second Amendment rights, you guys should know how to get a hold of Washington Gun Law by now. But if you don't, that's okay. That information is down there in the description box. If you got an idea for a video we should be doing around here, you click on that link right there and tell us all about it. If If you want to subscribe to our monthly newsletter, the ability to do all of that, it's down there in the description box. And then finally, and most importantly, let's everyone remember that part of being the lawful and responsible gun owner, like we talk about all the time here, is to know what the law is in every situation and how it applies to you in any instance that you may find yourself. Until next time, thanks for watching and stay safe.